All right, today I am thrilled to welcome to the show Professor Brian Peskin. He is a globally recognized scientist, MIT graduate, and he's revolutionizing our understanding of essential fatty acids and cellular health. He's also known as the leading expert on EFAs. Professor Brian has advanced the groundbreaking work of Nobel Prize winner Otto Warburg in cellular oxygenation. And guys, the reason this is important because a lot of Otto Warburg's work tied into cancer research, which I'm sure we're going to talk about today. Brian's also has got to the root cause of cardiovascular disease, which is huge. And there's a huge uptick, as many of you know, with the prior to the pandemic, I guess we could say. And we're talking about chronic inflammation. He's got over 4 books, 1,200 radio shows and podcasts. Professor Brian is here to share his insights on how we can transform our health through the power of nutrition. Professor Brian, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me, Evan. Greatly appreciate it.
Man, where do we begin? I've got so many questions to ask you. You know, we were talking offline about polyunsaturated fats, PUFAs.
Yeah.
Dr. Catherine Shanahan says PUFAs are the devil. You know, I just had Udo Erasmus on the show. He said, Joel, that's not true. And I know your research. You're a research guy. You're a professor.
Yes.
You're not about selling supplements, although you do have some. But your whole point is none of that. That's a lot of noise, Joel. And I know we're going to get down to the bottom of it today. So I'm really excited to welcome you and really cut out the noise. How did you get started with this work? I don't know if you can kind of tell us like what made you so fascinated.
My wife, personal, just like you, my wife became diabetic, doing everything right. In her 30s, type 1. Send her off to a clinic in California, you know, where you are, LA, Whitaker's Clinic, complex carbs, gets the blood work after she comes back, and the blood sugars were worse than when she went. And I said, now I know why he doesn't give you the results when you're there, because everyone would demand their money back. So it was like, Brian, you know, you're engineer by training. You're a good scientist. What do I do? So I wanted to solve type 1 diabetes. I failed. I couldn't do it. I helped the complications, retinopathy, neuropathy. She was at her ophthalmologist, you know, after about 10 years that she had it, and goes, Brian, the doctor said I can't be diabetic. My eyes are too good. Do you know this guy, and is he lying? I said, number 1, I don't know him. Number 2, they don't lie. But I focus on physiologic EFAs, cellular anti-inflammation, disease prevention, but the applications to decreasing your appetite for weight loss and increasing the exercise efficiency by decreasing the time you need are also profound. I typically only consult with physicians, but today I'll give a general audience-based, understandable presentation. So you'll get 25 years of my research and discoveries in an hour. So fish oil was a wonderful first cut, because I always start there at EFA Science. But the understanding has progressed significantly over the past 30 years. And I'll clear up all the rampant confusion on the internet about toxic seed oils. And they're all saying seed oils are toxic, right?
Yeah, that's right.
The statement is partially true. Chemically processed, adulterated seed oils are toxic. But to the contrary, unchemically processed organic seed oils are absolutely essential to great health. And here's why, because regardless of what you've been told, we have 100 trillion cells that require them. They are the brick and mortar of each of those cells. Organic means 2 things: the growing of the seed, no pesticides, no chemicals, and the oil extraction has to be chemical free. So if you don't distinguish between chemically processed and organic, you completely miss the mark, and nobody is doing that. They may say it in a sentence or two, but that is the total difference between having a toxic poison and having something essential. So seed oils have the unique potential to be either toxic or essential. And that's why they're called EFAs, E for essential. Stands for essential fatty acid. I termed it parent essential oils, which is in the medical literature. But it's not an acid like sulfuric or hydrochloric acid. It's the chemical structure between a base and an acid. So I don't even like the term. But the key thing is essential. Body can't make them. So my favorite quote: we're suffering from a wealth of information, but a poverty of understanding what that information means. A lot of insight there. For example, inflammation is now known as the root cause of the vast majority of diseases: cancer, cardiovascular, diabetes, COPD, even Alzheimer's. And they're not just diseases of old age anymore like they used to be when I grew up. People in their 20s are getting heart attacks and cancer. So for the past decade, I focused exclusively on cellular anti-inflammation and have developed the world's most powerful anti-inflammatory medical food. It's called Easy Trek. And I want to thank Dr. Rob, who's the former chair of plastic reconstructive surgery at MD Anderson Cancer Center, the largest cancer center in the world, one of the largest plastic reconstructive surgery departments in the world, because he would do the reconstructive breast surgery as his specialty. He retired recently, but he's a world-leading authority and the past chair, and he's had over 100 patients with the not Easy Trek, the precursor, the nutritional supplement, to help those patients heal, and was phenomenal results. 3 key facts that everybody needs to know, and then I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. So we have 100 trillion cells. Every one of the 100 trillion has a cell membrane. It's called the bilipid membrane. And the membrane, Joel, is actually the brain of the cell. It's not the nucleus. Of that lipid portion, a quarter to a third are the EFAs, parent omega-6, parent omega-3. That's LA, ALA. The terms don't matter. I'm an engineer. I went to MIT. I'm not big on spelling, not big on memorizing terms. And I tell the doctors, you have great memories, but I have understanding. I'll beat you every time. So if they can take my brutality, they do, because I'm right, and the people I'm around are functional integrative medicine docs, world leading chair of, MD Anderson, plastic reconstructive surgery, puts up with my mouth and my, I'm not aggressive. I'm just passionate because the truth is not getting out there. And the key everybody needs to understand is we cannot make parent omega-6 or parent omega-3. They're essential. They must come from food, and they don't interconvert like a cow does. So the omega-6 stays in the omega-6 lane, the omega-3 stays in its lane. And overall, the ratio, because everybody says, oh, we're overdosed on omega-6. We are overdosed on adulterated omega-6. It's 12-1. When you look at the tissues, it's 4-1 in the major organs: heart, kidney, liver, 4-1. The muscles are 6.5-1 in favor. This is parent omega-6 to parent omega-3. And in the fat stores, 20-1. So when you do a little algebra, the whole thing is 12-1. And here's where this comes from. It's not me making up. Medical textbooks: Molecular Biology of the Cell, standard book in medical school; Textbook of Medical Physiology; Harper's Illustrated Biochemistry. So this is where this is out of. So that's the first thing. LA and ALA, parent omega-6, parent omega-3, are the brick and mortar. They stay in that form in 100 trillion cells. The second thing, and nobody publishes this, first question would be, everybody says, I need more DHA, I need fish oil, krill oil, marine oil. It's all the same thing. And by the way, what DHA and EPA is for a fish? Antifreeze. And I'll tell you why. If I threw one of us into the water, 30 degrees water, we'd freeze. 32 degrees is freezing, right? You would freeze because we're mainly water. So to have the fish not freeze, nature has 2 choices. Alcohol, can't do that. You have a drunk fish. Or long-chain fatty acids. I put vodka in the freezer, it doesn't freeze. I put omega-6, omega-3 in the freezer, it doesn't freeze. 2 to 6 milligrams a day is all that is used in the brain. Milligrams. Contrast this with what's being prescribed. 1,000 milligram capsule of fish oil, any marine oil. It's typically 60% EPA DHA because there's other oils in there. There's saturated fats, there's monounsaturated fats. 60%, so that'd be 600 milligrams. 600 milligram divided by 2 is 300. So in 1,000 milligram capsule, the average patient is overdosing by 100 to 300 times per capsule per day. And people in the health field are saying, oh, you need 4 grams a day, 4,000 milligrams. You can be getting 400 to 1,200 fold times overdose per day. Contrast that to, hey, you'll take 100 aspirin, call me in the morning. Don't, I'm being very facetious. You will bleed to death and be dead. Where did this come from? Imaging incorporation of circulating DHA into the human brain using positron emission tomography. Journal of Lipids Research. The doctors never see this because this is a physiology journal article and it never makes it into the clinical journals like JAMA, New England Journal of Medicine, Lancet. I read those journals, but I live in the molecular biology journals, the physiology journals. The next thing is we make all the DHA we need from the parent. No problem. And you only need 2 to 6 milligrams a day. If you have the parents, you make the what are called derivatives. They're longer chain. So the parent is an 18 chain carbon. The DHA is 22. If it's EPA, it has 5 double bonds. If it has DHA, it has 6 double bonds. The other big insight that nobody ever gets, less than 1% of the parents go to derivatives. It's actually less than 0.1%. 1 part in 1,000 of the parent omega-3 goes to DHA. We have 2,600 times more parent, because it's the brick and mortar, remember, of every cell, than the derivatives. 99% stay as parents. And the mistake that was made years ago, they didn't have the high resolution chromatography, so they thought 40% or 50% of the parents would go to derivatives like DHA. So the thought was, make it easy on the body. Just give them the DHA. Body doesn't have to do the conversions. That makes sense, except they were completely wrong. It's not 40%. It's 0.1%. Instead of 4 parts in 100 or 40 parts in 100, it's 1 part in 1,000. Where's this come from? American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, Journal of Lipid Research, Polyunsaturated Fat Newsletter. Nobody's getting this. And again, the research never goes from the hard science journal to the clinical science journal. The last thing, and then happy to answer a few questions. This was a key finding 2017. Nobody picked it up. The majority of cells are hypersensitive to changes of the membrane lipids, quote, induced by the diet. So here you go with what you said before. The diet is key. Inflammation is now known as key, and the article says it's a game changer. What causes the inflammation? The chemical processing on the omega-6 cooking oils. Omega-3 is never used. Nobody ever says fry this or bake with flax oil, do they? Fry this or bake it with, marine oils. And by the way, I mentioned the antifreeze before. I can prove it. Dr. Rowan, my co-author on PEL Solution.
Dr. Rowan was on the show a long time ago. Yeah, love him.
He's a great guy. Warm water fish in 70-degree water has 14 times less DHA than the cold water fish. That's proving it's the antifreeze. We're at 98.6. DHA spontaneously goes rancid at room temp. So the poor person listening to their health quote professional is taking all this fish oil. It's going rancid immediately when they take it. And what happens? All the antioxidants from everywhere in the body come flooding in to help stopping that oxidation so it doesn't turn rancid, which is toxic poison. And now you start somewhere else. Gee, do we have a rampant increase in dementia, Alzheimer's? Yes, so we're doing it to ourselves. Where does this come from? And the cell senses chronic inflammation. Everybody today, if they're eating processed food, if they're going to any restaurant, any supermarket food, unless it's organic oils or a raw foods vegan like Dr. Rowan, they're going to get processed oils that are inflammatory. And every one of those 100 trillion cells is inflamed. It's called chronic inflammation. It's known as the root cause of every disease that's inflammatory based. About the only one I know of that isn't is Parkinson's. That's more a chemical poisoning, but we've tried to help those patients and no effect whatsoever in reversing Parkinson's. Everything else we can help. This comes from activation of the unfolded protein response by lipid bilayer stress. So given that title, how many physicians see that? Zero. It's in molecular biology of the cell. And the quote is, the study provides a new perspective on the active role of biological membranes, may be a game changer. So the bottom line is the problem we can now solve is to get long shelf life, the food processors are chemically adulterating the omega-6 cooking oils. That's the culprit. Again, the omega-3 series is never used, and they're coming in already toxic. They are not going bad in the body. You need what's called bisallylic bonds. It's a double bond next to a single bond, and you need at least 3 to be a problem. So that's your DHA, EPA. It is not linoleic acid, which is parent omega-6. Sunflower oil, safflower oil, canola oil. I don't buy canola oil. I don't like soybean oil, but they are all the omega-6, and nature is real good. It gives everything with a ton of omega-6 in it, because remember, our tissues and organs are 12 to 1 in favor of the omega-6. There are very few foods that have omega-3. Lettuce does, grass does. It's loaded with omega-3, but even in a grass-fed cow, the cow burns up all the omega-3. So it's about 2 to 1 parent omega-6 to parent omega-3 instead of 10 or 12, which is the grass. So even the lowly cow doesn't want the omega-3. It's really, really bad. And I calculated just 1% of a teaspoon adulterated omega-6 is 30,000 overload to each of those cells. So just imagine, I do martial arts, put 30,000 people that know nothing against me and I have to defend it, I'm dead, obviously. Thank God the 30,000 don't go into the cell. It's proportional to how much junk oils you eat compared with how much good oils you eat go into the cell. This is Lands did this, a few other great researchers, 1990, but nobody talks about this either because it was in the Journal of Lipids. And it's all in the percentage. So if I'm eating 80% good oils and 20% bad, I can live with it, because Dr. Warburg, MD, PhD, Nobel Prize winner, not for the discovery of cancer, but the prime cause of cancer is lack of cellular oxygenation, and the omega-6 is the cellular oxygenator. In 1976, Dr. Campbell wrote about that in cystic fibrosis patients, and nobody picked it up. So the cell membrane itself can actually disassociate the oxygen, just like hemoglobin in the blood is the transporter of the oxygen. It's not just the oxygen in the bloodstream going in and out of that cell, it's the cell membrane itself. So anybody getting any cooking oils, organic, That is the key. Skip soy. It's an endocrine disruptor. You got the soy boy, thing. You've heard about that. It turns guys into chicks. You don't need that. It overdoses poor women with an overdose of estrogen, so it screws them up. It's not estrogen is bad for cancer. That's ridiculous. What, nature wants you dead? Are you out of your mind? It's the overdose. And all the steroids, pesticides, and hormones from any fat. So I tell everybody, eggs, cheese, bacon, butter, cream, anything that's fat based, spend the money, get organic, because you don't want the pesticide or hormone residues, because if you're not getting organic, they go into you, they're stored in the body fat. And then when the person tries to diet, if they want to lose some fat, that fat is released. You're on a keto diet or a carnivore diet or a low carb diet. The stored body fat gets released and all those toxins come out. So I'm sure you got a few questions. Happy to answer anything I can. And if I don't know the answer, I will tell you that. I'm obligated, like Nobel Prize winner, my idol, Richard Feynman, Nobel Prize winner in physics, said, you're obligated to give everything that doesn't coincide with your theory. And I don't care how smart the guy is, what his name is, what he does. If it disagrees with real life results, it's wrong. So I'm a hardcore theoretist, but what really gives me the kick is when the clinical practice, like yourself, goes, Brian, you told me these oils will give me more endurance. You told me they increase the oxygenation so I don't get the lactic acid burn. You told me I recuperate faster. Guess what? It does it. It's like I already know it does it. I know the science in the exercise physiology. But happy to answer, quite a few of your questions. I'm sure you have some.
Thank you. And by the way, Richard Feynman, I love.
You love him too? Great.
He's one of my favorites. I mean, he's one of those guys, and if you follow him, it's the he's seeking the truth, and a lot of us, we don't want to seek the truth. That's all that
matters.
We want to seek our own bias.
Yeah,
we want to seek our own bias, and I love that he's willing to be wrong. I love that, and not many people will do that. Okay, a couple questions. One, you mentioned adulterated fats, processed seed oils.
Yes.
I want to just be clear, so if anybody's listening to this, are you saying that
it's processed oils? If there's any processing,
like, is canola oil, if it's organic, can I have that? Is that okay? Is that an adulterated oil? I have no idea.
It's called rapeseed oil. So mustard gas in World War II is a neurotoxin, was made from it. It's called erucic acid. They've tried to get the strains. I would not touch canola oil, and it's not even a real
brutal. They use a lot of hexane and stuff to actually bring it out, right?
They do, but if it's organic, it won't have that. But the structure itself is wrong. It's just like any marine oil, has nothing to do with the purity. Krill oil, fish oil, squid oil, I don't care what it is. If it lives in the sea, it's the wrong structure for a human. We only need 2 to 6 milligrams that everybody can make if they're getting the parents. People may go, yeah, but it helped me, and it will help you short term, maybe 90 days if you don't have the parent omega-3. But long term, it's essentially acting like a steroid, because steroids stop all metabolism of the cell membrane, and that's what fish oil acts like. And if you talk to any MD, hey, Brian, should you stay on a steroid for a year? They'd look at you in horror because you'll kill the patient.
Right.
So you don't want fish oil at all. And if you're taking it, no more than 90 days. And get the parents in. But it's the processing, and soy is an endocrine disruptor. It's the soy boy syndrome. Soy, I do a lot of lecturing in Iowa. If you ever smelled soy ground up, you'll get sick to your stomach. So they have to process it, deodorize it. You would not touch it. And we have something called smell and taste, where we're naturally given that. It's like you would never eat the rind of a cantaloupe. I've heard people talking about, my grinder for, Vitamix or something grinds up the important, husk, the damn rind that I won't eat anyway. Well, of course you won't eat it. You're out of your mind. It's like flaxseed husks. You never, ever, ever want them, because the components of it are very even worse than the flax oil is itself. Flax oil is okay, and I recommend it in formulations, but it has a backwards ratio of parent omega-6 to parent omega-3. Even Udo Erasmus wrote about this, where he was just living on it, his flax oil, and the skin goes to hell. It gets horrible because there's no omega-3 in the skin. So if you overdose on omega-3 or fish oil, it gets forced into the skin. And I'll talk about this in a little while on the mitochondria in the heart. They did a study with this, and the results are staggering on what it did to the omega-6. It displaced it. So excellent question. Organic oils are mandatory, and don't touch canola and don't touch soy. Anything else will have different amounts of omega-6 and omega-3. So for frying, I love coconut oil. It's all saturated fat. It can't combine with anything. But Brian, it's going to give me a heart attack. No, there's no saturated fat in an arterial clog. 87% of it is adulterated omega-6. And Dr. Spiteler, who at the time was one of Germany's top biochemists, wrote extensively about this, saying the adulterated oils are coming in already oxidized. That's the oxidized cholesterol you hear about.
Yeah.
Cholesterol is the transporter of the EFAs. So it's called a condensation reaction. It's called a esterification, if you want the science. I call it a magnet. Here's the cholesterol. It's actually the cholesterol molecule. Here are all the EFAs and the lipids. They magnetize to it, and that's how it goes in the bloodstream. Because the bloodstream is water soluble, and the fats would just float in it, so you have to tie it to a lipoprotein. A lot of science here. You don't need any of it. You just have to know cholesterol is the transporter of the PEOs and the oils, and the physicians don't even know that. And even the Nobel Prize winner Goldberg talked about more than cholesterol itself. I think the issue is in what it's transporting. He hit the nail on the head, and that's the last you ever heard of it. Very, very surprising. Excellent question.
So the toxic ingredient in everyday foods that's wreaking havoc on our health, it's fish oil is complete bullshit then. I mean,
yes, you don't need any of it,
and
you're getting overdosed on it by a factor of 100 to 300 times per day per 1,000 milligram.
Yeah,
and I'll talk to you what's happening.
I love that you said that, because I know a lot of people.
Carbs and the protein, no issue. So there's no issue with screwing up the chemistry of the carb. Carbs stink anyway; they make you fat. Carbohydrates make you fat with the insulin response. Period. Protein doesn't get screwed up either. It's all in the oils, and specifically what oil? The omega-6 cooking oils. It's that simple to fix yourself. And to get rid of the extra fish oil, it's about 18 weeks to clear it out of the cell membrane. Takes about a year to get the structures right, because your body won't just take it and dump it all in. Like if you have an iron deficiency, I can't just take a half pound of iron, eat it, and I've solved the anemia problem. No, your body will only use a little bit at a time, so you don't kill yourself with an overdose. It's the same thing with the oils. So that's why over the years, I've been able to figure out just how little you need. Even with Easy Trek, a teaspoon a day. That's it. That's it.
And it's all about that balance, right? It's the correct ratio, and that's what you're getting in like the supplement Easy Trek. It's the balance of omega-6 and omega-3, correct?
Everything is balanced, and I design it for a supplement, because not all of the oils you're getting that you eat are bad. So even in a steak, you're getting parent omega-6, parent omega-3. Now, some of them may be bad if it's not organic because of the chemicals and steroids they use. But if they were all bad, we'd all be dead. So that's the proof it's not bad. So I design things as a supplement, and I'm very conservative. People go, oh, you're a maverick, and you're this, and you're controversial. I'm the most uncontroversial guy there is. I'm giving you medical textbook references. Take a look in back there. I've read every book. 80% of them are physiology, biochemistry, molecular biology. I've read those books. Most people haven't. They get the book and it sits on the shelf. It took me a year to get through textbook of medical physiology, and I talked to the doctors and go, Doc, this is in your textbook. There's 19 editions of it. Brian, we tore through this in 3 months. How long did it take you? I said a year. Okay. And furthermore, we're studying to pass a test. I'm a systems guy. So my thing is the input is the food, the system is you, and
Yep.
the output is your state of health and how fat you are. And
Yeah.
that's it. The system, is perfect. It's like the Ferrari doesn't run. Well, I check the timing, I check the spark plugs, I check the ignition, I check, this, that, and the other thing. Oh, you didn't use super premium fuel. Everybody missed that. It's the same thing with this. Everybody's looking in the wrong place. And chronic inflammation is the root cause, and it's known. I'll get into some of this.
Yeah.
And you solve the chronic inflammation. People have no idea what it is to feel decent. Should only need 4 or 5 hours sleep. Your skin should be phenomenal. Fingernails should not have heel bumps, ridges like every woman. They shouldn't be thin where they're breaking all over the place. Everywhere I go, the women come up, wow, your skin looks good. I say, yeah, feel my hand right here. There's nothing on it. I get a look of horror on their face because it's some 20-year-old girl. I said, but I got a secret. I beat you. You're close. I'm a guy. I don't
Yeah.
shave for a day. I mean, it's bad. So my testosterone is enormous and my skin is still softer than yours. But I
Professor
got a
Brian, how
secret.
old are you and what's your T levels? Tell the
I'm
audience.
65. T levels are high 800s.
Wow.
And this whole thing with testosterone decreasing as you age is garbage. If your testosterone is down, everything else is down. These oils are the substrate of all the steroid-based hormones like testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. So they're all cholesterol based, but the oils they're tied to, the PEOs and the EFAs, are right there. Everybody misses that. We have so many people that were having fertility problems. 3 months of the oils, pregnant.
Wow.
Guys are having sperm counts that are 60% of what they were 40 years ago because they're living on soy and they're not getting the EFAs. It's unbelievable. A pregnant woman gets these oils, they have the baby from heaven. No cough, no skin disorders. It's unbelievable. The difference is this is the number one deficiency in America and the world, because I'm always lecturing around the world and saying, don't follow what America does. We ruin the world. We're the sickest industrial nation on earth. Why would you follow what we're doing? Our medical profession is killing everybody because they're not functional medicine people. They're
Yeah.
drug based.
Yep.
And these oils, now you got people on the internet, they're toxic, right?
Yeah.
And they're insane. You take a look at what they look like. Had one guy, big internet guy for health. Oh, cardiolipin in the mitochondria, that's the cellular energy producers, and there's more mitochondria than there are cells. Could be 100 to 1,000 mitochondria in a cell. So number one, if you have a problem with energy, you can't repair. You can't heal. You can't fix any damage done to an organ. So everybody is done it. Oh, the cardiolipin, the inner layer, is all omega-3. It's only omega-3 if you're overdosing on it, like your recommendations, and it's displacing the omega-6. And I'll give you the reference for that in a minute. So they are downright either just wrong, which is misinformation, or lying. The reason I don't care about you're wrong via Feynman, Nobel
Yeah.
Prize winner.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. I don't care why you're wrong. You're wrong. But they're doing so much damage. That's why I get so passionate about this. I can't let a doctor out there giving misinformation killing people, because you will die a very bad death. We're living longer, but look at how most Americans are living. Your last 5 years is in a nursing home with dementia, with Alzheimer's. It's just tragic.
Yeah.
Had a guy, doctor, just today, hour ago, Brian, we're giving Easy Trek to a fellow. He's got dementia. He was a major director at an engineering company. Very wealthy guy, very brilliant guy. He couldn't remember his name. You're making a difference. I said, please get me details on the difference, because if you look at brianpeskin.com, I've got a lot of the science I give, and the top right is a new paper on Alzheimer's being a cardiovascular disease. It's not the beta amyloid. That's the cell falling apart. because you don't have the EFAs. Remember I told you it's the brick and mortar? So if it falls apart, the protein spills out. That's beta amyloid. Now, having beta amyloid on neurons does nothing. It's on the outside. Who cares? And the pharmaceutical companies won't get off of it. For 25 years, they've been on beta amyloid. Every drug they do does nothing. But the FDA is very compassionate and listening to people going, we're trying to give people hope. My comment is, I don't want false hope. There's real hope. And it's cardiovascular based. So people can look at that. It won't cost a nickel. You can just click on it and download it. And it's shocking what's said. And it's in the literature about every dementia patient, every Alzheimer patient has cardiovascular impairment in the brain. 100%. Not 20%, 30%. 100%.
Professor Peskin, talk about. I want you to talk about that cellular oxygenation and how EFAs play a role in preventing disease at the cellular level.
This is all Dr. Warburg that would talk about oxygenation of the cell. So if there's and I wrote a book, Hidden Story of Cancer. You look at the website, go down to the bottom, it'll be there. MD Anderson was nice enough to let me be in their library for 4 years. I'm not part of their institution. I'm not part of a hospital. I work alone. But they let me be in the stacks for 4 years. 300,000 medical volumes. Now it's all digital. But at the time, 300,000 volumes, textbooks, journal articles. So Otto Warburg showed 35% cellular oxygen decrease, not bloodstream, not the pulse oximeter you put your finger in at the hospital. Everybody is 92 to 98%, no issue. It's in the cell, and you're not going to get that number without doing a biopsy in the cell. So you have to be in the hospital. Nobody does that. If it's decreased over many years, and it can be intermittent, it's okay, and then it's not okay, cancer-induced. It was verified 1953, Goldblatt and Cameron, 1955. In America, they looked at the heart. They deprived it of oxygen. Every case, cancer induced. You don't feel it. You don't see it. You don't know it. And there's different grades of cancer. It goes from benign to fully malignant. This was cancer too. It's called the percentage of aerobic glycolysis, anaerobic glycolysis to oxygenation, phosphorylation. It's technical stuff, but it's either meaning the oxygen is used in the mitochondria or you're using glucose and it's highly inefficient. So cancer cells run on sugar, glucose, because it requires no brain, no intelligence. It's like yeast. How do you feed yeast? Sugar. And it just boom. So it grows and grows and grows, but it's brainless. The mitochondria is structural energy. It's a thermodynamic thing. And that's the prime cause of cancer. The people at MD Anderson don't even typically know it. Most of those doctors don't know the name Otto Warburg. No one is making use of discoveries. There are some people, me included, of course, but nobody's tied the parent omega-6, parent omega-3 into the cell membrane as being the solution to what Dr. Warburg discovered. So that's a big thing. I got to stand on his shoulders and come up with that. But anybody that cares about cancer can go on the bottom. And I have a digital program. It's all of $30 because I wanted to basically give it away. All my books are there in digital form. There's about 20 reports. So if you care about cancer, you can click that on. If you care about, soy, like I was saying, what does it do? Pick what you care about. If you want to see every 20 calories of carbohydrate or a teaspoon of sugar, people at Methodist Hospital were saying to eat 60 teaspoons of sugar worth of carbohydrates a day, which, okay, compared with what? There's 1 teaspoon in the bloodstream. And fats are the body's preferred energy source. It's not carbs. You even have the medical profession today going, oh, the brain runs on sugar. It doesn't want to. It's supposed to run on fats.
Okay, you got to explain a little bit more on that, because what about people in the blue zones? Those people are eating carbs, but they're just
You
primarily
can live
their
on a
diet
lot
is
of carbs, and bread is the staff of life. Nobody said it was the staff of radiant health. You won't die. So carbs have no nutrition. They just go to fat and make you fat from the insulin response. So I am very big proponent on a lower carb diet, not no carbs. Number one, you can't do it. But
Yeah.
here's the number: every 20 calories, carbohydrates, teaspoon of sugar. Every 5 grams is a teaspoon of sugar. So you want to eat 15 grams, or not 15 grams, 75, 15 teaspoons of sugar. There's only one in the body. So I can eat a lot of it if I'm exercising all the time. The
Yep.
problem is you get an athlete that starts being an athlete and they blow up.
Yep.
And our government, the USDA, has turned everybody in America diabetic by overdosing on carbs. Sinful what's happened. You don't need any carbs. What's the RDA for carbs? None. There isn't one.
Yeah.
You don't need any to live. You're supposed to be running on your own body fat, and people just don't get this. Nobody's giving them the science, and it's just so easy to fix. But Warburg, back to cancer, and you would expect, for example, breast cancer to be the number one cancer. What's
Yep.
breast tissue? 85% fat. The parent omega-6, parent omega-3 aren't going to go there until it's in all the organs. Remember, it's 4-to-1 in the organs. So if you have a deficiency, goes into the vital organs first, then it goes there last. That's the first place I would expect there to be cancer. Voila, it is. And cancer can go anywhere. It's all the same cause. Otto Warburg had the prime cause of cancer. One cause. Hundreds of secondary causes. Asbestos. What's it do? Inflammation. What's the answer to inflammation? Oxygen. Quells it. Ask any doctor. Oxygen. Well, if I'm taking the oxygen from there and bringing it here, there could be a deficiency over there now. So the answer
And that
is
omega-6, it's on that bilipid layer, the outer layer of the cell membrane, and it's
yes,
creating like a protective barrier from these inflammatory cytokines, I'm imagining, or toxins. Is that correct? Is that how
it's a
keeps
barrier, but
itself?
it's also the brain of the cell,
Yeah.
and everything comes back and forth through that membrane. So it's the brick and mortar. If you don't have integrity there, it's like your skin.
Yep.
All omega-6. The inner lining of your artery, called the intima, all parent omega-6. So these geniuses telling you seed oils are toxic, where do you think they're coming from? Seed oils are the number one best way to get them. And nuts have them too, but nuts are, Seventh-day Advents are really healthy. It's the omega-3. 20% omega-3, 5 times more omega-6 in the walnut than the omega-3. They
What
don't
about the
tell you
keto
this crap.
zealots, though, Professor Peskin? A lot of the keto zealots, they're and carnivore, they're promoting saturated fats. They're not promoting omega
Yeah,
6,
they're
and they're usually screaming
yeah,
poop
I
are
know
bad.
they are, and I've
Yeah.
been at some of their conferences, and they don't listen to my work.
Okay, good.
Saturated fats you can eat like coconut oil, but it will give you virtually no EFAs. So
And the
they're going to
whole
long.
premise is that saturated fat's more stable. That's their argument. It's more
It's
stable. So
stable. It won't
it's
give you a
not
heart
no
attack.
free radicals.
It won't give you a heart attack, but like I said, the omega-6 isn't giving you the free radicals either. You need at least 3 double bonds, the bisallylic bonds. This is all in my PEO solution book with Dr. Albert, brilliant Australian physiologist, talked about this extensively, and nobody gets the science. They just make this up, and there's no references. So the number one thing I can do to anybody listening, who do I believe? Don't even want you to believe me. The science, the medical textbooks. And if they're not giving you those, run. Run like hell, because they're making things up and they will kill you because they don't know what they're talking about. This is all I do. It's not for amateurs. I live,
I love it.
breathe,
No,
and
I love
sleep
this, man. This is so
7 days a week, EFAs. Now it extends to other areas, but I stay at the center of the circle and circle. So if
Yep.
there's a center, there's a circumference. I can go from the center anywhere in the circumference, and I'm always right. You're on the outside and try and go in, you're not hitting that center. Well, it works here and here, but it doesn't work here. Wrong. Doesn't work here. Wrong. Because they're guessing. They're not starting in the right place. And it's all with the lipid bilayer. And again, Warburg is what started me on this path. And the more I looked at it,
Cool.
I didn't know every cell had the lipid bilayer. And then it was, now I understand why cancer is so prevalent. You got 100 trillion cells, And why heart disease is number one, the intima and all the medical textbooks say it's one layer. Dr. Subodin, brilliant physiologist, MD, physiologist, said, Brian, it's not one layer. It's 15 to 20 layers. I've got the electron microscopy of it. Here's my medical journal article. So that gives you 20 times the potential to have heart disease. I said, my goodness, it's even worse than I thought. I know the inner layer is screwed up, but there's now like 20 inner layers. There's 20 layers, like one straw on top of another straw. Put 20 straws, one inside another. That's what the intima actually looks like. And the potential is now 20 times worse. That's why heart disease has no end and stop. Well, statins are the answer. Walk into any cardiologist's office. Why are they overflowing with patients? Why is heart disease still the number one cause of death? Because you failed.
Yeah.
It's all in these oils. And like I said, 87% of the clogged artery, one thing, adulterated parent omega-6 from the food you ate, not going bad in the body. That's spy teller.
Gotcha. Talk about, I want to talk still about skin cancer, which you talk a lot about, and I want to talk about cardiovascular health, which you just mentioned. But before I do, I wanted to just highlight testimonials, because I'm thinking, wow, this is so amazing. If people start implementing the correct omega-6 omega-3 ratio through something like one of the supplements, Easy Track, I'm just curious, and I know you can only divulge so much without saying I cured this, because you're not allowed to.
I don't cure anything. You
don't cure anything, right?
Nope.
But like, what have you seen historically? You've been doing this for 25 years. What have you seen with people like with autism, or just, I don't know, man, name the autoimmune disease, thyroid? Do you see a lot of amazing results, and all they did was start supplementing?
It won't do much for thyroid. I don't know why. It won't do much for Parkinson's. But outside of those two, if you go to my website and go on the bottom, you'll see 35 health professionals, mainly MDs, talking about my work. You'll also see 100 testimonials from people just like the audience, what it does. First thing is, I'm not tired anymore. I'm getting 4 or 5 hours. Oh, we're all sleep deprived. Because you're EFA deprived, you're sleep deprived. You should only need 4 or 5 hours of sleep and go like the Energizer Bunny all day long. Wow. We get this with everybody. Then the skin becomes magnificent, especially the fingernails. They don't break on women anymore at all. So it's all beauty from the inside out. Diabetics, their cravings go way down. Everybody's cravings for carbs go down. The reason everybody has such cravings is you're not getting the fully functional EFAs. So the body can only go, oh, Joe, you didn't give me the EFAs. All I can do is make you hungry again. Hope the next batch of food gets me some of these EFAs. Of course, it never does. Eat, crave. Then what happened 20 years ago? The nutritionist came by. Oh, you need to eat 8 small meals a day. That's My joke with that is what you have
100-calorie snack packs.
You have nothing better to do than to be a human billy goat. Are you out of your mind? A properly functioning human being once or twice a day. And you should not be hungry. People start taking these oils. I used to have a pizza every other day. Like 11 at night, go to bed, have to wake up and drink 3 ounces of water. By the way, every ounce of carbs you have, you need 3 ounces of water. So you're a human sponge. So if you want that, eat a lot of carbs. But I have 2 cats. Their food bowls stay full. They walk by them all day long. They're not hungry. We should be the same way. Cookies, cakes, pretzels, pop. You just don't want it anymore. I have no desire, and neither do tons of people, and you can read about it on my website with the testimonials. None of these people are paid at all for them, and they've been kind enough to write it up and just say, husband used to be diabetic. I've listened to what you say. We have a protein powder fruit smoothie, because fruit satisfies the sweet tooth craving, and as long as you get the oils, you're satisfied. You don't need the ice cream banana split with the hot fudge. It's just gone. It changes everything. So it's not even a diet. It's just easy as heck. And it's all tied to one thing. I'm a one-trick pony. Yeah. But back to the cardiology, The omega-6 side makes what's called prostacyclin, which is PGI2, which is a natural blood thinner. So everybody taking the right oils, parent omega-6, parent omega-3, your artery becomes like a balloon. That gets you the 120/80 versus straw. So we have numerous people, high blood pressure, even taking drugs, add the oils, they get like a straw. And then PGE1 is the body's strongest natural anti-inflammatory. Stands for prostaglandin series 1. They don't even talk about this in the lipids people because all their prostaglandins are after arachidonic acid. There's a big chain.
Yeah.
PGE1 is here. The arachidonic acid is down here, and they all act like PGE1 doesn't exist. My comment is, why do you think it's called number one? Because it's the most important. And everybody says, oh, omega-3 is anti-inflammatory. It's worthless.
Wow.
Omega-3 has virtually no anti-inflammatory anything. So why are you saying it's so great? Well, because it displaces the omega-6, which is anti-inflammatory. And here's a great one. I have the reading glasses on so I can give you the medical journal. American Heart Association, 2009, 15 years ago. Quote, omega-6 also has powerful anti-inflammatory properties that counteract any pro-inflammatory activity. Quote, it's incorrect to view the omega-6 fatty acids as pro-inflammatory. That's what every jackass on the internet is saying. Oh, they're inflammatory. That reflects, quote, a rather naive understanding of the biochemistry. It's like somebody looked over there at the way I write because it's rather derogatory. Rather naive understanding of the biochemistry if you're sitting there saying omega-6 is inflammatory. Where is this? American Heart Association Heartwire, 2009, Journal of the American Heart Association, published, omega-6 fatty acids, risk for cardiovascular disease, Circulation, one of the top heart medical journals in America. And nobody's got that. Nobody even remembers. It's like they all forgot it. 15 years ago, the American Heart Association says omega-6 is not inflammatory. And now everybody and their brother is saying how toxic it is. They're out of their mind. If it's processed, it is. But I guess these people need to go back to English class in high school and learn what an adjective is. Processed omega-6 versus unprocessed organic. It's called an adjective, doctor. One word, and you mislead everybody. So they're close, but we're not playing horseshoes here. And nobody is making that in spades. That is the fundamental difference. Here's the thing with fish oil. Here's the quote. Parent omega-6, this is the seed oil they're saying kills you, fixes the damage, rescues, their word, the major remodeling in the cardiolipin. Remember, this is your energy-producing mitochondria so you can heal, induced by long-term intake of DHA. Quote, it's not the loss of parent omega-6, it's the replacement of the omega-6 with the DHA that promoted the reduction in activities. So if you want no energy, keep taking that fish oil. Frontiers of Cardiovascular Medicine, Journal of Biological Chemistry, 2018. So it's in the journals. Here's another one nobody's ever seen. Cod oil gives you skin cancer.
Cod oil, that was a big one. I remember that because that was a big one. The Weston A. Price people were saying, oh, you got to take cod oil because it's high in vitamin D and vitamin K2, and it's revolutionizing. It's great for babies and brain health. Out of your mind. Yeah.
The women got 3 times more melanoma skin cancer in the fish oil group. This was done in Norway, and believe me, they did not want to get that result because they're a fishing country, right? And this was published in Diet and Risk of Cutaneous Malignant Melanoma a prospective study of 50,000 Norwegian men and women, International Journal of Cancer. Major abnormalities in the cardiolipin was found in all cancer. So every cancer has the mitochondria screwed up. That's Warburg. Journal of Lipids Research. Cardiolipins, 20% lipids. The main substrate, it's omega-6, no omega-3s in there. Scottish Crop Research Institute, Lipid Analysis Unit, Scotland, England. Cellular oxygen deficiency can cause cancer anywhere. Restoration of normal fatty acid composition enhances the supply of oxygen to the tissue. Movement of oxygen could occur at any cell membrane. This is Campbell, 1976, Pediatrics. So it's in the journals, and the doctors don't even believe the journals themselves anymore because studies are open to misinterpretation. Last one, then we can answer more questions. Fish oil raises blood sugar levels. So diabetes is a big problem today. If you have fish oil, it blunts the insulin response. Quote, 1988, 1989, 2003, the insulin dose of the subjects had to be increased throughout the 6 months period of fish oil administration to maintain constant glucose. Quote, consumption of fish oil enriched diet worsens glycemic tolerance. Quote, fish oil caused insulin resistance, reducing glucose clearance by 26%. Just 3 weeks of 6 grams a day decreased the insulin effectiveness by 40%. Wow. So you want to have insulin not work, become insulin resistant, keep taking your fish oil. How nobody is talking about this except me is utterly beyond belief. This was in Metabolism, Annals of Internal Medicine, and British Medical Journal of Nutrition. So it's even in journals that doctors should have seen, but they're so overloaded with patients, they don't even have time to do this.
Yeah.
This is the problem. So in your carnivore diet and the keto diet, they're getting virtually no parent omega-3, which means they'll have no DHA EPA. So if you give fish oil short term, you may get a result. Long term, it's going to kill you, but short term, you will get a positive result, and they're not getting enough of the parent omega-6. The saturated fat is one part of it, won't give you a heart attack, and it does get burned for energy in the bloodstream fast, so that will keep you thin, but it won't keep you healthy. And they're all missing it. You can have the keto diet, the carnivore diet, the low carb diet. You just have to add in, like I said, you don't even need a teaspoon. Half a teaspoon does it.
Yeah. Wow.
It's unbelievable how little you need, even for those 100 trillion cells. It's just absolutely shocking. And somebody asked me to do a calculation of, well, I'm on a carnivore diet. I'm just eating steak and chicken and codfish. I calculated all this stuff. You could get 70 to 80% of the EFAs you need on a carnivore diet, keto diet, if you're eating animal protein, not a ton of saturated fat, and it's organic. But is 70% enough? Everybody I know wants as close to 100% as they can get. So if you take a supplement based on the science I'm giving you, it's easy to take that keto or carnivore diet and make it utopia for the health diet too, because the way they're doing it isn't. It's not looking at the EFA component in the least, and every one of them is missing the mark.
Yeah.
And it's easy to fix.
Yeah, clearly. I know we're gonna have to wrap things up in a little bit. I was just curious because you mentioned so many benefits, and I'm probably gonna have you on for round 2 because this was too good. But you mentioned the benefits of cardiovascular health. Right now, we're seeing a lot of people, I don't know, die suddenly. A lot of people are having cardiovascular issues from this spike protein that people injected.
Absolutely.
What are you seeing in that respects? Are you seeing any success stories with people able to rebuild their cardiovascular system after maybe being
Anything
injured?
with
Or
cardiovascular health, the oils are critical. It makes the structure of the artery. Omega-3 is in the muscle tissue too. So to get the flexibility, remember the balloon versus straw. If you had a straw, it'd be 120 over 120. So being the balloon, it wouldn't even be 120, it'd be 140, 160 over 120. And that's
mm-hmm.
hypertension, high blood pressure. And once you get the straw, okay, and then in the inner layer, that intima, that's made of actually 15 sublayers, it's all parent omega-6. So we take care of that. And with the mitochondria, the body has the energy to rebuild. So the answer to any cardiovascular based question, yes, it helps immensely.
Yeah, amazing. Last question I have to ask, for people that are watching on video, you're
Yeah.
smoking a cigar. So people might say, what the heck does this guy know anything about health?
It's not
We
just
know
one.
smoking is bad. This guy's smoking a freaking cigar. So Professor
Yeah,
Peskin,
and
go
it's a
with it.
big one too.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Now, in fairness, you don't bring it into the lungs like a cigarette. Is it good? Hell no. The smoke in the cigars doesn't have the additives, so it's pretty much additive free, but it has heat, and that's damaging. So obviously, I know something about inflammation, right? And I remember I went to Dr. Mitchell's office in Boston. He's a top cardiologist, does all the stuff with the Framingham Heart Clinic database around the world. He's well known, journal articles everywhere. And I said, Doc, measure my post-wave velocity. Want to see how flexible the arteries are, how unclogged they are. And he's looking at me, and I whip out a bag of cigars this length. I said, I'm smoking these every day. Oh, measures me. Biologically, I came out 20 years younger than my chronological age. So what you do is you do scans of how hard the artery is, because the harder it is, the faster the wave will be. All you do is put some sound on it, and boom. So if it's flexible, it's going to be slower. If it's hard as a rock, like a straw, zoom, goes fast. So very easy and very accurate. I came out 20 years younger. He almost fell off of his seat in spite of this. So I'm
Amazing.
not stupid. Obviously, my stuff works. My own recommendations work, and they do around the world, because we're much more alike than we are different. That's the other big myth.
So true.
We're all different. Minor. And I don't care what your eye color is. No, we're not that different. As far as I know, you can't go underground like a termite and live. As far as I know, you can't turn your car on in a garage with the doors shut. You die of carbon monoxide. Now, I'll die too, but I may get an extra minute because I got the oil, so my rate of oxygen usage will be higher, but I'm still dead. I can't violate the laws of physics. So we're much more alike. And Brian, there's multiple textbooks on physiology, right? But they all say the same thing. Of course, there's different textbooks. There's different, but it's all the same science, because the science doesn't change. It may get slightly modified. Well, there's special relativity, and yeah, but you got to be going at super insane speeds to have that be an issue. Every day, there's no differences. You don't need to worry about it. The science is the science. And we have phenomenal measuring capability today. All the advances today aren't in the drugs. They act like they are. It's in the medical physics. The CT scanner, beautiful. We're doing a lot of work with reversing and stopping the progression of coronary artery calcium. It's called CAC. Here's another one nobody knows. It's the number one predictor of heart disease. Why haven't I heard of it? All I hear is cholesterol. You haven't heard of it because there's no drug to help it. Mm-hmm. So why is the doctor going to say, let's measure this, come back and tell you how bad you are? And a statin actually makes CAC worse. Doesn't help it. So as good as statins, you may say, are in different areas for CAC, it's in the medical literature. It makes it way worse. Grows at about 20-25% a year, getting your artery more and more like an inflexible straw. So the oils are tied to everything. But why should they be? Well, you have 100 trillion cells based on cells. and every cell membrane is based on the oils, and half of the lipid portion, the other half is protein. There's basically no carbs in the cell membrane. Of that lipid portion, a quarter to a third are the parents. They stay as parents. There's no fish oil in there. So anybody telling you fish oil made my skin smoother, how? Here's another thing, everybody listening. Ask your doctor, healthcare professional, what's the metabolic pathway, how it works? What? The metabolic pathway. They won't like that question because they won't know. And
Right.
if they can't give you a metabolic pathway, like I did, the LA goes to PGI2 down here, goes to PGE1 down here. And those are the two big things we need to know. There's a ton of other stuff, but everything is not the same level of importance. Some things are way important. Like I told you, dietarily, the lipids are up here, the carbs and protein, they don't get screwed up. So their chances of being impaired are down here. It's 100,000 times more in the lipids. Don't concentrate on the other two. All the focus has to be here. Fix this. Any doctors listening, this turbocharges their protocol. Anybody that wants to have better outcomes, these oils turbocharge the protocol. You will flip when you, hopefully, what I've said will at least get you to be
I've already
interested.
flipped. Yeah, don't worry. Don't worry.
Try it.
Yeah.
More endurance, higher weights. I used to train with Lee Labrada, came in second in the Olympia, and Samir Bannout, he actually won the Olympia. So I used a reverse pyramid. I would start with the highest possible weights, and I just started getting interested in these oils at the time, but they would say, nobody can train as hard as you, because I would recuperate so fast. They'd all be in agony, crawling the second day if you've ever done hardcore weight training. But starting with the highest and ending, your muscle is literally shaking, but never a lactic acid burn, just muscle failure. Shocking.
Wow.
And endurance people too. I've got testimonials from that. Endurance runners, athletes, professional NFL players. This acts in the brain like a shock absorber. Cardiologists, farmer part-time, then I know we have to go. Bale of hay hit him in the head. Goes to the ER, gets an MRI scan, CT scan, no concussion, no damage. Goes, Brian, this is a shock absorber for the brain. I just proved it personally. We got to get this into the sports teams. And of course, you're talking to a brick wall. They just don't. Well, my team nutritionist says, right, the seed oils are toxic. This is why I don't even talk to them.
Yeah.
I typically write and talk to physicians that aren't getting the outcomes they'd like to get, even though they should. They add the oils to the protocol. Boom, you turbocharged everything else because the effectiveness of everything they were doing wasn't maximized if you don't have a proper cellular membrane. It's that simple. I'm a simple guy.
I love it, man. I love it. This is so good. I want to wrap things up, but just give a call to action. If people want to go check out your research, I think you already dropped the website, Professor BrianPeskin.com, right?
It's just BrianPeskin.com. It's B as in boy, RIAN, P as in parent, ESKIN.com. Pile of papers there, pile of quick videos, and they don't have to spend a nickel. And if they want a full program, they can go to the bottom. They can see the testimonials. And like I said, it's $30 for 90% of anything I've ever written over my career. And I've been told I'm the number one person for medical writing with insight, not just garbage, of anybody in the world. Somebody said, Brian, I've ever read everything you've ever done. There's 1,800 pages there between your books and journal articles. And it's not just regurgitating garbage. It's making breakthrough discoveries like the Omega-6 in the cell membrane with the dissociation of the oxygen is the solution to Warburg's discovery. Now, I stand on Campbell's shoulders, and I'm one of the few that gives credit where it's due, because to not do that is sinful too. I didn't invent this stuff. I get to stand on the shoulders of geniuses. But I have made discoveries on my own, but again, standing on their shoulders. Nobody else does that. It acts like, hey, I'm the only genius in the room here. There is no history. It's like discovery with engineering. Oh, this engineering marvel was done because 50 years ago, this engineering genius had this, and he stood on the shoulders of a guy 100 years ago who did this. You look at medicine, zero. There's no history. It's like it's starting today. And what does medicine do? It's a merry-go-round. It's going to merry-go-round. Hey, calories don't count. Martinis and whipped cream in the 1950s. That was a low-carb diet. They had it all. Goes to merry-go-round 50 years later, high carbs, turning everybody in America diabetic. Now we're back again. So it's just you got the science. Why don't you stay there? But they just go in a circle, getting nowhere.
Yeah.
That could all end today.
Yeah, well, thanks for your work. I mean, you're part of the solution, so thank you.
Well, I appreciate you getting me out there. I tell people I'm the biggest secret in the world, but what the hell good's it do if nobody sees it? So I greatly appreciate this.
No, it's so great. And then if someone wants to get your products, there's a couple of the products that you formulated, the Easy Trek product and
that's a good for health. They're the reseller. So anybody with diseases and disorders under physician care, that's the definition of a medical food. They can go to goodforhealth.org. And anybody that just wants maximum athletic performance, some help with dieting, just overall health, is youressentialsupplements.com. Make sure you put the S in there. So your essential supplements, it's all one word, .com. And I think there's some codes and stuff they give you for discounts and things. But again, I don't get into selling anything. It's just,
and I'll put those in the show notes. So for people that will go to goodforhealth.org, you can use the code HEALTH1 for 10% off. And if you go to yessupplements.com, you can use the code YesHealth1 for 10% off. So just really quick, because I'm even curious, if I want to buy it for me, I would go to the Yes Supplements and get that, or do I have to have a doctor's prescription for the other one?
Oh, for a regular supplement, don't need anything. And you don't need a prescription if you have a disease or disorder for the medical food. You just have to be under physician care.
Gotcha.
So medical food is in between a supplement and a drug. It's not a drug. Doesn't have FDA studies like a drug does. And, but there's an exclusion from the Orphan Drug Act. You need a pile of science. So the medical food is made for people with diseases and disorders, an impaired delta-6 desaturase pathway. That's why they're not getting the PGE1 that we can compensate for. We help compensate. I can't fix the pathway, but thank God we can compensate for it with the seed oils, because without the seed oils, you can't compensate for it. And the results we're getting with Easy Trek, beyond belief.
Well, what if I'm like me? I'm 42. I just want to live healthier and get
a better. That's the Yes supplement.
Okay.
Maximize your workouts, because I'm sure you exercise a lot. Phenomenal.
Yeah. And actually for my kids too, Brian. I want my kids.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The attention span, it's laser. I mean, I go to bed at midnight every night. I'm up at 4. And
wow. And that would be the herbal liquid, right? Is that what it is?
No, it's the EFAs.
The EFAs, the DIF on the website.
Based on ESIAC. It's a great detoxifier and optimizer, but it has nothing to do with the oils. It works differently. So that helps get rid of junk you don't want. There's probably some minerals there that are coenzymes, so they make the vitamins work. Everybody gets vitamins that they don't really need because they're still in the food. The minerals aren't in the food, and they need those, and nobody has to focus on those. So I went
Ultimate to the EFAs. That's what I'm going to get buying.
That's the EFAs.
Okay, perfect. Because there's
take 2 before your workout. So you typically take 1 per every 40 pounds. 2 before the workout, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. 10 minutes is enough. Brian, it can't get in the bloodstream in 10 minutes. That's impossible. Garbage. Do it, and it does. All the time. And the blood flow, I've had physicians go, Brian, this is like, what's the ED stuff? He goes, oh, natural Viagra. He goes,
yeah.
It was a doctor from Italy. Called me up. I can't believe what this does in that. I said, it's blood flow, doc. It's up. PGE1 is a vasodilator and an anti-inflammatory. I talked about the anti-inflammation. It's also a vasodilator, so it opens up the artery like nitric oxide does for more blood flow. And today, everybody has impaired blood flow to the frontal lobe.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest reasons there's a lack of empathy in everybody. You see road rage, you see everybody running around mad, you see people on the conventions, for president screaming, yelling. It's like they're mad. What do you say? You're happy? What are you screaming at? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm passionate, but I'm not
Yeah.
mad.
Yeah.
And that goes away.
Mm.
You get the blood flow, people with headaches you were talking about, phenomenal. Stress, it makes your hormones with the steroidal based hormones. 90 days we ask people to evaluate, but you'll get results the first week. And it
That's
gets
amazing.
better and better and better for a year.
Amazing. Professor Brian
Yeah.
Peskin, man, what a force you are, brother. I appreciate you coming on the show. Come back anytime. I'd love to rap with you more.
Thank
This was
you, Joe.
great.
We can talk on an exercise focus next time if you want.
Let's do
Because
it.
I've got a lot for that, done a lot with exercise physiology in their medical textbooks. It's absolutely in the journal articles for exercise and metabolism, how these oils are phenomenal. They did it with mice, and when they took the oils, phenomenal improvement in their endurance. And EFAs work the same way in a rodent as humans. I'm very wary of animal studies because a lot of times, like in wound healing, it's a different way. Like we heal over the skin, the rodents contract the skin. So it's a completely different way of healing. You would never know. But with the EFA component, it's all the same. So you can do a rat or a mouse study with EFAs. In this, most other things, it's not going to work. You don't know if it works or not. But with this, and then you test it in people, and it's either going to work or not. But we've been doing this for 25 years. The results are staggering. But the number one deficiency in America is EFA deficiency. And you need those seed oils. Organic, unprocessed. If they're processed, adulterated, they are toxic. But you better put those adjectives back in there.
Love it. Professor Brian Peskin, thanks, brother, for being on the show.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you.